Ms. Frances Pawlowski here, Mr. David McGraw.
Here. All right, looks like we have a quorum. First thing on our agenda is downtown Cape.
Mark Evans, Commander, Jackson Beach Police, and everything's status quo downtown Cape. Warm weather, so we got a lot of citizens that are coming out. Got a lot of patrons. The bars are all crowded. We are currently preparing Commander Crumley, along with a couple of the downtown Cape officers, are planning and assisting Parks and Rec for the opening of the beaches parade, which should be our first one in a while during COVID, so we're just making plans for that. Other than that, we're good.
Any questions? Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, courtesy to Florida visitors. We have one card. Ken Marsh. Name and address for the record, sir, and you got 3 minutes.
Ken Marsh, 2011 Gale Avenue, Jax Beach. Most oftentimes when I have the opportunity to address this committee, my main purpose is to have a focus on the agreed upon vision plan. 2 years ago, this committee paid $30,000 to the Shepherd Group to develop the plan. Last year, that plan was agreed upon by the council and the CRA. On the agenda today is an item for discussion, which is item A, which is regarding the market analysis on Latham Park parcel. Now, I can appreciate that we're working on this parcel as one facet of our new agreed upon consolidated plan. But I believe we're missing a key objective, and that is how all the various components fit together to create an end-to-end comprehensive downtown strategy. Latham Park Plaza is but one of the P3 potentials that have been identified in our plan. We are still missing the discussion on the Pier Park Plaza, which is on page 39 of the consolidated plan. I'm very perplexed how we can have a discussion about market opportunity at Latham parcel and exclude Pier Parking parcel. Task 1 talks about supply and demand for a defined trade area, but it appears that this task is very narrow in scope and does not take into account the Pier parcel or the bigger objective, which is the entire downtown area. Here is what the pier, if you haven't seen it, it's in our consolidated plan. So what I encourage this group to do tonight or today is to not approve Agenda A as it's stated, but to extend the scope to a minimum that includes the Pier Park parcel and possibly other areas within the downtown. Finally, I want to thank the committee for putting courtesy of the floor in the beginning of the meeting rather than the end. I think this will encourage more of the public to participate in CRA calls. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else with courtesy of Florida visitors? Okay. Next on our agenda is staff report. Taylor?
Yes. All right, so per usual, I'll kind of go through just some key points, and then any questions you guys have, let me know. I will start with playground. We're still on track to open on the 15th. We did confirm with parks that should we, for some reason, not have the one big slide, that we are still going to move forward with a soft opening because there's no reason to delay use of that. They'll keep that one section blocked off, and then when the slide does come in, then they'll have the big grand opening again. But so as of right now, no matter what, the 15th, we will be doing some kind of opening. The medians in the South End District, the planning is ongoing. The roundabout at First and Beach, that has been completed. The statue out front is obviously tinted and it's being worked on, so that is good. Dennis is here, so Public Works, I'll kind of skip over their stuff, seeing as he is the expert, not me. With FRA conference coming up this October, that'll be in Daytona. I will be attending that this year. And we are going to be submitting for 4 award categories. One that we're really excited about is the park and playground. We feel that has a really good shot. And there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears going into that, so we're super excited. Other stuff will be infrastructure, the art committee, and then potentially the hardscaping bike track plans for the downtown. As far as our staff report. We're hoping in April you'll see there'll be kind of an attachment to it. And what it's gonna be is kind of an action items spreadsheet. So it will keep track of current projects we have going on, the group, entity, department, or person responsible, the status, and then kind of notes from the previous meeting. So as we continue moving things forward, because we do have a lot of projects, it just helps us keep organized. And if somebody has a quick question, you can kind of look at that spreadsheet really fast and remember what was said last. Gary helped me with that idea, so Gary, thank you for that. And then next month, first part of April, we will start calling people for interviews for the art committee. It closes this week, and as of right now, we've got some really, all the candidates are great, so I'm really excited about that. We plan to bring the preferred candidates to you guys at the April 25th meeting. And I know we already talked about this, but we will move forward unless something's changed with the April 11th date for our workshop. So we'll get notice out with the clerk. And at that workshop, we'll be talking about the marketing kind of packet brochure, branding, and then we're going to also kind of dive more into our maintenance plan and kind of just do a comprehensive of where we're at, what we've spent, how often, and then kind of look at what do we need to edit and change on that moving forward. And then Beaches Energy will also be coming April 25th to discuss the lighting. So anyway, I just threw a bunch at you guys, but yeah, let me know what questions or if there's some stuff I can clarify or if I missed something.
I have a quick question. Tell me again what we're doing at the workshop on the 11th.
Yeah, we're gonna go over the maintenance plan that we've kind of been working on for the last about 10 months, just to look at what we've spent, how often we've been doing it, and what we're actually tracking. So then we can have a chance in a workshop format to kind of hash out any kinks, little details here and there, and kind of perfect that hopefully. And then we're gonna go over the branding, which is actually on council's agenda tonight. So what comes from their discussion will kind of then trickle down to this discussion. And then we had talked about kind of creating a marketing brochure, booklet, pamphlet, something to that effect. Taylor's been helping with that. And so we're gonna bring you guys a template at the workshop and then discuss fine-tuning that template and what exactly we wanna see in our marketing brochure.
Thank you. Any questions of the staff report or Taylor? Francis?
I'm just curious, I wanna make sure I didn't see in here, and maybe it's because I printed it really small. It's because there were 9 pages. I didn't see tasks to discuss the concrete barriers we talked about in the south end part, and as well as part that's not even ours, right up by the gas station in Bonefish. Is that just gonna throw underneath the overall art plan, or is that gonna become one of our action items to discuss?
Honestly, it could be something we probably discuss more at the workshop. Heather, what do you think?
Yeah, we can.
Kind of expand on that on the workshop.
I didn't know if that was, needed to be a bullet point on this or not.
Yeah, we can make it one.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions of the staff report? Were you going to ask public works questions under this or somewhere else on the agenda?
Well, I've got some public works questions, but I
That was the intent, was under this. Yep.
Yeah.
Public works? Come on there. Yes, welcome back.
Well, and thank you all. I got a couple of things for you. You should have in front of you the public meeting notice for tomorrow night, 5 to 7, Parks and Rec. This is the first public meeting for project areas 4 and 5, which is the downtown redevelopment project from GAI. They'll be there. So if you're available to attend that, that will be the first meeting that's available. I did bring with me a guest. Who I got with me is Mr. Alan Mosley. He is the new city engineer. Some of you may or may not know of him. He has been working throughout Jacksonville area for most of his entire career. He has come to us through previously being city engineer for City of Jacksonville, as well as the private sector in various capacities. So we're welcome to have him. He'll have his second month under his belt next week. So he's been really trying to focus on getting his head around everything that we've got going on all aspects. So, of course, like I said, I wanted him to have an opportunity to get in front of you. We were going to do an introduction with him to City Council. However, that was the night of the VLSC, and we chose to avoid the hour and a half's worth of didn't come to that meeting, so we're picking a different meeting to introduce him to city council. So if you have any questions, or if he wants to say anything, he's welcome to, otherwise I'll.
Thank you, I look forward to working with you.
So what's your background, sir?
Mr. Graham, I think you may know more about me than I do. So.
Any questions? James, please.
All right, so I don't have anything else as far as updates go, other than whatever you have for questions for me, if you have any.
Gary? Mr. Gary?
Dennis, I'd like to just get some clarification on where we are with a couple of the different projects that Public Works has undertaken. And I guess one of them is in reference to this upcoming meeting tomorrow night on areas 4 and 5. We're at what, 60% construction documents on that?
Yes, sir. We've received 60% from him.
And when do we anticipate getting 100% documents?
Well, we have, as was in the original RFP for this project, the timeline is they are coming to us at the 60% documents. We're gonna have the public meetings. After we review the 60% documents, we're gonna provide them direction on how to split projects 4 and 5 up for design and then ultimate construction. Right now, as you may or may not be aware, they're kind of linear, going from 4 to 7th and then from 7th down to 11th. That's what's listed in the book. However, we at Public Works have been having some conversations to look at staging those a little different and call project 4 like both sides of First Street and the avenues, and then this project 5 would become 2nd Street and the avenues to help traffic be able to move around a little better rather than taking out, a dozen blocks, and then after everybody's opened up and turn on the next block. So the anticipated process next is to provide them the direction on phasing. Then they will begin to take the whatever we consider to be phase 4 on to 90% drawings and then ultimately 100% drawings and then out to bid. And then as soon as those go out to bid, they will then begin designing project 5, which would be the remainder of that area. And they would be doing the design for that project 5 and following the same process, 90%, 100%, and then ultimately out to bid. When they go out to bid from that, then they would begin the same process with project 6, which is outside of the CRA.
Sounds like it's going to be a long construction period down there in that area.
You are correct.
Based on, the fact that we're splitting it up the way we're splitting it up, so it doesn't make sense to do it all at one time.
Not as far as Public Works is concerned, because you are, in projects 4 and 5, you are talking about 24 blocks. So unless you want our 24 blocks of downtown to look like a foreign country that's being invaded, that's what it would look like with everything being torn up, infrastructure trying to go on in 24 blocks all at the same time. So the only way to phase that, in our opinion, is to continue with project 4 and then 5 and then ultimately 6. That way we limit the construction, we limit the activity. And we do that anyway. So even if we were to say get them all done, it would take a significant amount of time for them to get the plans to 100%. And at the end of that, we're still only allowed them to have a certain number of blocks open at any given time as far as their construction progress. So it's not like they can blow up the entire area and work everywhere at the same time. They still have to work underneath our constraints. So you still end up with the same construction timeline.
So all of this will be presented tomorrow evening to the public and they'll get an understanding of what's going to be happening in the next couple of years.
I would imagine so, yeah, because all the plans, the 60% was there, at least the generic flat work plans of what parking's going in, what work's being done. They won't necessarily see the infrastructure work to know what's going on under the ground, because most of the time they're not concerned with if we're replacing the water or the sewer or the stormwater. What they're worried about is driveways, pavement, curb, parking, those concerns.
Switching focus to the South Beach district. What's happening down there around the work that's being done along Jacksonville Drive, west of South Beach?
As of right now, that project is set to any day. They have, submitted all their shop drawings and they've been approved to start. They're just waiting on getting everything together to be able to start that project.
And then the second phase of that, is that in design at this point?
It's not been officially put out to design, partially because we can't begin construction until the other Jack's Drive project is done, and that project has a 1-year timeline. So you obviously can't begin construction until January of next year, so we've still got some time to be able to get that under design and get that out to bid so that it's ready to start construction in the January, February timeframe.
So we'll see something here shortly in the way of a proposal for those services to do the second phase.
I'm not for sure. Yes, I believe so. We're working on those as one of several other ones that we've got going on. So I know we're working through those between city projects and CRA projects. So I'm not exactly for sure when we'll have that one ready to go, or if, because it's already approved in the budget overall, whether it'll have to come before you guys for additional approval, or whether it'll just move ahead.
When you say it's approved in the budget, you're talking about the CRA CIP budget? It's in there as an approved budget, as an approved project already? I didn't think we had gone that far with it at this point.
Yeah, it's by the definition, if you look in the CIP, it'll give you a definition of what the project perimeters are, and as well as it's got a budget assigned to design and ultimately construction.
The construction equipment that's sitting in the lot that's on the southwest corner of Jacksonville Drive and South Beach, is that part of the equipment that's going to be used for doing that construction work?
Yes.
So they're already moving their
Yeah,
equipment?
they're moving equipment in and moving stuff in. That's why I said the staff report says they should be coming and should be working at any time. Matter of fact, I think we've got a progress meeting this week, which is kind of weird, but we're having a progress meeting and they haven't moved in, but I think that's partially to drive the fact that their notice to proceed was given to them 3 months ago, and they've been trying to get all of their stuff together and all of their equipment and as well as their materials and stuff to be able to begin that. So yeah, I would expect, like I said, I expect any day that we're gonna see that, since it wasn't, today, at least that I'm aware of, it'll probably be next Monday when they start, or any day between, so any day.
At one point, we had talked about that there would be an evaluation done in the South Beach area of all of the utility systems and roadways and things like that to determine what additional infrastructure work needed to be done in that area above and beyond what's already beyond what was described in the 2011 plan that was approved. Where do we stand with that?
But we haven't begun any further examination of that area. We have been looking at the next upcoming CIP projects that are coming. Obviously, there's a new project in there, which is Project 7, as far as the downtown piece goes, and then there's some other additional projects coming up for additional phases that'll be going out to design as well. So we're working through those, as well as we're still working through the very large document, technical memos that we've got on all of the drainage stuff. So we're trying to get through all of that stuff before we begin focusing our time looking at additional projects.
Because at one time we were told that we would be getting at the beginning of the year a report that would identify additional capital projects that needed to be done so that we could include them in the budget cycle that's coming up. And you're telling me that we're not going to have any information to be able to do that at this point.
We have added, like I said, the new Project 7 in the downtown piece. The
I'm
rest of it I have.
I'm talking about the South District now. I'm not talking about downtown. I'm talking about the South District.
Yes, sir. As far as the projects we have right now, we are currently holding 228 pages of technical memorandums on the drainage processes. So until we get through all of those and are able to decipher what's in there, that's the direction that they're beginning to tell us these are potential projects. And so until we get through and decipher all of that information in that document, for those 5 documents, I think, that's where we're at.
It's just that last year we were told we would be receiving it at the beginning of the year, and I'm just trying to get my arms around what that's going to be so that we can be prepared for the budgeting cycle, and we do this in a consistent and reasonable manner.
Well, as of what we have today, Public Works does not have any additional projects to add in the CIP for FY '23 to '27 in that south area, because we don't have that information. So unfortunately, we can want and wish to have all this information back. We currently don't until we further get through this design study on the stormwater projects.
There was also discussion about additional projects that needed to be done in the South District as it relates to the drainage for the existing basins or ponds that are down there. Where do we stand with that?
Again, it's in the 228 pages of documents.
Well, I thought some of that was already agreed upon and that we were going to be getting budgeting for that to be able to clean those ponds or get them squared away so that we could, clean up what's down there existing now, not what, adding anything to it. We had finished one project down there, which is on Marsh Landing Parkway there, across from Public, so to speak. But there are the other ponds that lead out to the intercoastal that we're going to be looked at, and we're going to be cleaned and upgraded so that we have proper flow for stormwater drainage that heads out in that direction.
Okay, so two parts to that. Number one is the cleaning of the silt is one part, as well as deforestation of the overgrowth that's going on. That project is sitting on Mr. Dupree's desk, who is our construction coordinator. He has that ready to, or pretty close to being ready to go out to bid. Prior to Christmas, he was out counting trees so that we can actually get an accurate bid on exactly what sizes of trees we have and how many there are that have to be removed. That's for both. That project will actually go out with a bid recommendation for the South Basin, with an alternate to include parts of the Central Basin as well, doing exactly the same thing, which is going to be going all the way out to the intercoastal, clearing out the silt, and then de-treeing or deforestation of the overgrowth. Now, upgrading those to whether that determines it needs to be weir walls or it needs to be deeper, it needs to be larger. Again, that's part of the 228 pages of documents that have been provided back to us to try to get through to be able to look at that and now come forward with which direction do we want to go next.
Any idea when we might get some sense of what the outcome of that report is?
I do not. That's been on my desk for a month, and along with all of the rest of the projects. That's why I brought it today, was just to kind of show you that that's what we got in one email from our engineering firm that said, here you go, here's your first process, and we haven't managed to get through it. Mr. Allen's got those on his desk, and Cale's got them on his desk, and Dave McDonald has them on his desk. So we've got at least four people that have to review it, and then we've got to get together. I believe we're going to have a meeting next week with that engineer to kind of go through that document, so that kind of forces the issue that we have to get through at least the initial reading, even if you skim through it, so that we can have a meeting that actually has some results to come out of it to say, okay, here's the directions we want you to go, or this is what we want you to work on first, second, third, or what to do next for them to be able to carry us forward to those projects. Because I think in all essence, that project is so big, it's very hard to manage in just saying, this is what we need to do. So we've got to break it up into things that we can be able to manage to be able to get through.
When you say this project, I'm sorry, which project?
All of the South Basin stormwater, which is listed as Project 3. These are all based on Project 3, which is Central and South Basin Drainage System Evaluation. Is one of them. The Central Basin H&H Model Development, which is a hydraulic model, is one of them. The model schematic development is one of them. Additional information on the sedimentation and the outfall weir excavation. And then the Central Basin Pumping Station Evaluation is one of them. And the second pumping station evaluation is all another one. So all of these, we're talking about 1,300 acres worth of flood protection stuff that's all going through these. So it's not something that we can just fly through and say, this is what we got to do to get there. We're still trying to get through there.
I appreciate what you're you're saying, it's just that, you know, we're giving certain information about when we're gonna be receiving things, and my expectation is we would get it. And I don't see that happening right now, so it's urgent that we try to get some of this stuff moving along so that we do provide the citizens of this community the flood protection that they deserve.
You are correct, and I think that original RFQ for that, since projects 3, 4, 5, and 6 all went out together, and then we split 3 off to be a separate complete engineering firm. Like I said, this is still spring, which is when these plans were expected to be given to us, and then from here we take this to the next level, which are actual projects and project costs. So there's some stuff that's in there that has to do with costs and some recommendations, but like I said, we've got to get through all those and make our own internal evaluation as to what's the right direction, what's not the right direction. There might be projects in there that are either extremely too costly or way over designed or way over engineered to actually get anything done. So that's where we're at. We're still on time for that project 3, so we're not holding anybody up. But like I said again, with having no city engineer for 4 months has slowed us down on being able to get some projects out. This open house for tomorrow, like I said, this is where we're kind of concentrating our first piece, because until we can get them moving ahead with the next set of drawings, then we can begin with the next set of projects. And like I said, on top of these, we have city projects that we're managing as well. So
Well, I would ask that in at the next CRA meeting, which is roughly a month from now, that hopefully you can come back to us and give us an overview of where we stand with all of the projects, what direction we're heading, what the schedule might be for those projects, so that we can get a clear understanding.
if we've got them. I know for part of the public meeting for tomorrow, like I said, some of the next pieces from that meeting itself is to get better define the original budget. Keep in mind, these original budgets for all these projects for construction were done in excess of 5 years ago, most of them, and they've been carried forward. So we're hoping with the engineer's cost estimates for projects 4 and 5, once we get those defined, that will help us be able to get those numbers included in the new CRA budget coming forward. And we are trying to get through those. Like I said, within the next month, I should have had the meeting with the engineering firm that's responsible for those. We should be able to get some definition as to whether we're going to have projects and costs by that next meeting in a month. I can't say, because I'm not for sure exactly when that meeting is with them. So I'm unsure as to how soon we'll have those project information.
And now you bring up a very important point, and that is that as we move forward with our budgeting for this next year, we've really got to take a look at the numbers, because a lot of the numbers are old. And with today's costs, they're skyrocketing, and I don't know whether we've got everything covered the way it needs to be covered. And we really need some effort on everybody's part here to try to get our arms around truly what the costs are going to be as we move forward with a lot of these major projects.
You're exactly correct, and I have been working with Ashley and AJ both in finance. They know that what we've submitted as of today for the upcoming CRA, which I think you're going to see the CRA budget coming up in another couple of meetings. Those are still preliminary numbers, and as we get these engineers' estimates of cost, if our $4.1 million project or our $5 million project turns into a $9 million project and an $11 million project, then we'll bring those numbers back to be included, so that when you are approving a budget, you'll have the latest and greatest numbers of everything that we have. Although some numbers may just roll forward, the CRA is an advantage in the fact that it does have funding, so it's not on the other end of it where I'm looking at actually saying, I need $9 million for a project that was only budgeted at 4.5, at least you have the ability to be able to compensate for those additional numbers. But like I said, for every number set that we can adjust, we try to adjust those as we move forward, but there's a lot of those that just sit and they sit and they ride until the project comes closer, and then we can get a better idea of where it's going to be as we get to this far.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Dennis, who's the engineering company for tomorrow?
GAI, which is the same one that did the other downtown projects. So they're very familiar with what we're doing and what we're expecting. So like I said, and I've got the 60% drawings, all 249 pages of them to try to go through those on top of everything else so that I can be prepared. So there is a lot going on. I know you mentioned the barrier walls. We do have those. We're working on that project to get those basically painted, a solid color so that they're not blotchy for both of those, just to clean them up beyond that. That's all we intend to do with those, so that they are there and they are functional, so.
Mr. Chairman, just along those lines, you know, if you go on JTV, go down to San Pablo, where the city state had put in the barriers as the new access comes onto JTV. They've got those same barrier walls, and they've finished them with something, and what I've usually seen it done with is some kind of a rub finish that they do on those walls that helps take out that blotchiness that's in those barriers. But if you go over there, you'll see, you know, a good example of what could be done.
Okay, I'll look into that and see. Like I said, I just assigned them, after reviewing those and taking a look at them, I said I agreed that where they had filled in the holes in the forms, it looked blotchy and it looks bad and it needed to be colored. And let's just say I left it at that, whether I didn't care if it's like white, off-white, gray, light beige, but they needed to be all one color so that they appeared uniform and we didn't see the blotchiness. So, like I said, it'll all change. The first red car that goes down through there and puts a stripe from one end to the other, and that's what it'll be, is it'll be a giant new wall with a giant red stripe going down the side of it. So, that's what we have. So, that means it's doing its job. It's keeping traffic where it's supposed to.
Any questions of Dennis? Dennis, thank you so very much for coming down today.
Thank you. I will try to provide an update next meeting. I think I'm out next meeting, but I'll at least try to provide a written update before that next meeting to make sure you've got it on timelines for both of those projects.
Okay. Alan, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, onward with the agenda. New business, financial statements. Ashley, come on down.
Good afternoon, Ashley Gossett, CFO for the city of Jacksonville Beach. So what you have before you today is the fiscal 2021 financial statements for the CRA and the independent auditor's report. If y'all will remember, last year, 2020, was the first year that the state required separate reporting of the CRA. Even though the same information is in the city's financial statement, the state added a requirement that we separately report and file with the Auditor General statements for the CRA. So our lesson learned from 2020 when I was in front of y'all is we do not need to issue 2 reports. We only need to issue 1 report for both districts because you are one agency overseeing 2 districts. So this year you're only receiving 1 report. We received an unmodified audit opinion, which is the highest level of assurance our auditors can provide. And I just wanted to call out to your attention, there's some things that are in the report this year that are new from 2020. And it's our expectation that the state is going to add new reporting requirements each year now. So on page 27 of the financial statements is the management letter written by our auditors. And they've been asked to answer a series of questions. It's labeled as unaudited in the report. And I just want to kind of call to your attention the kind of the granular level of reporting we're being asked to provide, and staff was able to do that. But that's the only difference from last year's report. I also want to call to your attention that we received a comment from the auditors about compliance with state statutes because we were delayed in reporting a budget amendment to the county. With Taylor and Heather, we have remedied that and we are current going forward. So I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Ashley, thank you very much, number 1. Any questions for Ashley about this report? Gary?
Ashley, good afternoon. When going through the audit, there are just 2 things that came to my attention I was just curious about. I don't have any information on. One identifies assets, CRA assets, and talks about $7.2 million worth of assets. Is there a list or something that we could get that identifies what those assets are?
Sure, I can provide that to you, but what it is, it's the land that is still titled to the CRA. So when we had to start separately reporting the question of what do you do with the assets that were generated with TIF funded dollars. So we sought a legal opinion, and the infrastructure that is complete is now property of the city and is reported in the city's financial statements. The only things that are separately reported is the assets that are titled to the CRA, and those are the parcels of land in both the downtown and south end CRA. So there's like 9 or 10 parcels of land.
Well, if we could get a seen that. And the other question I just have is that it obviously lists also capital projects. And could we get a list of what's identified as the capital projects for each of the districts?
Absolutely, I can refer you back to the year-end appropriation that was before you in October. That was the list of capital projects at the time. We can update that for you. We can have a conversation when we bring the proposed budget to y'all that has a capital project listing. But then each October, you'll see kind of the pace of them for that fiscal year.
Thank you.
Anyone else question? Francis?
I don't actually have a question, but I just wanted to say that when I saw that they were not very happy with this, it just kind of brought me to the realization that we should be trusting that she's good at her job. And I just wanted to make sure that was put out there, because for the very first time that we had an outside person to be doing this, and it was a good bearable, I think that should be recognized.
Thank you. You have a very good team.
That was officially her attaboy.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ashley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it's the shortest time you've ever been at that podium. Don't get used to it. Okay, old business, home court.
All right. Yep, all right, so Heather is gonna pass out the draft of what's gonna be the actual sales agreement. Again, that's a very standard, just kind of purchase and sale agreement. The only thing you'll see in that that's highlighted is the section that's gonna touch on the deed restrictions as to what is allowed on the property. What you have in your packet is the actual MOU, interlocal agreement between City of Jacksonville Beach and the CRA for how we will actually be disposing of these lots. And then we also reattach just the appraisal and previous documents that went along with this, just as a refresher. And so to be also, I realized I wasn't very clear on this. The MOU is what the board will approve. Tonight, you won't actually sign anything, because you'll notice that the dates are still missing. That is because once the CRA approves this, then this will go to council, they will then approve it, and then we'll have to kind of collectively come together on a date for mayor and Art to both sign off on this. So tonight, there won't be any signatures. And the only thing, like I said, that actually needs approving is the actual MOU, the purchase and sales agreement, and the deed. Those are kind of internal legal being handled by the attorney. We just wanted to give the example of that so you could see that the deed restrictions are being taken into account.
And through the chair, if I could add, Chairman Graham, just kind of for your attention, it's on page 2 of the draft sales agreement, item 3, and those are the conditions that Taylor was talking about, as far as if the buyer does not do these certain things by these timeframes, the property basically would revert back to the city. But this ensures that they move forward, whoever the buyer ends up being for each one of these 6 lots, that ensures that they move forward with the development of a single-family home on each one of these lots, which is what we understand everybody was in agreement that they wanted moving forward. So that language is also reflected in what will be the final deeds for the property as well. But we wanted you to see that and have a comfort level with it.
I agree with putting some sort of a timeline there, keep them honest and moving forward. But I guess my question is, if they don't hit like the 18 months, can they just go to the city for another month, or does it just revert back there? Who controls that?
We'll work with the attorney. We had talked about this actually a little bit of, what do we do if there's a major materials delay? And it's something out of their control that we would have the ability to extend it somehow, especially if they're in the middle of construction. They're obviously working towards the intent of completion of a home. So, again, we're still, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's on the sales agreement and the deeds that will go along with it. So, we'll put some language in there to that. And we have already discussed this with the city attorney, because we have that same concern as well, especially right now, with material costs and delays, and everyone's well aware of that problem right now.
Francis?
Mine was right around the same lines as yours, with, drawings by an architect. We have 6 months, which, I think back in the past might have been reasonable. So I just wanted to know the same thing, if they can prove that they are in the works and it's not that they haven't been trying to get someone to shake them loose, if there's some control to let the city make a discretionary decision on pulling it or not. So that was my only question as well.
Yeah, and if I could add too, we felt, and I actually consulted with the building official on this as well, from a timing perspective, that 6 months was enough time to move forward with a set of plans. Turning in a building permit, it expires anyway in 6 months, so they should start construction. Again, we are on a deadline to approve it from a review standpoint as well. So he felt that the timeline and the deadlines were appropriate as well from the building side of things. So we feel pretty comfortable with them as well. Again, they can be changed, but we did go through a lot of work to try to get this, we want it to move along.
I'll make it very clear, I do not want to
Reasonably.
change it. I'm
Sounds
just curious about.
Yeah, understood, because there's always a delay,
Yeah,
or can be, yeah.
We don't want being hard asses, we just want to make sure we have the entire.
We'll be reasonable.
Reasonable.
We'll be very reasonable.
Gary?
Thank you. Just a question about the appraisal on the Horn property. The appraisal in the end says that it's the subject property as of 12/13/2020 to be $239,000. But I would have thought, is that a mistake? I mean, should it be 2021?
No,
Why are we saying 2020?
it was
That means
done,
we're 2 years out.
it's
and-
good through 2022. I'm looking for the page in here, but there's a specific, it states in there that, gosh,
So we're saying that the appraisal is based on a end of the year 2020 timeframe. So we've had 2 years since. The actual value of that property is probably something significantly more than the $239,000.
could be.
But again, like Taylor said, the appraisal is good for 2 years, and we have to have a starting point for auctioning off the properties. So we have an appraisal for that, and,
Yeah, expiration, it's got something in here that's like 11/30/22 or something, but,
It just seems strange to me as when I was looking at it, I would have thought, at least 21, but 2020 just, so.
well,
The other question that I have is, I'm not sure I understand the memorandum of understanding agreement between the city and the CRA. It talks about the CRA's investment in these properties for a total of $354,000, roughly speaking, and that it would be returned to the CRA upon sale of all 6 parcels.
right.
So are we saying that the Horn piece of property is something that the city owns, not the CRA, and that we're going to be just getting a percentage of that once it's sold?
so the CRA currently owns the Horn lot. The city currently owns the ones on Sunshine. However, they were purchased with CRA dollars back in, was it 2002? Ashley, does that sound right to you? When they were replatted in 06 to make Sunshine Court, they were deeded over to City of Jax Beach. But they were purchased with CRA dollars. So the intent is that all of the financial investment the CRA made, both for Horn and Sunshine, the CRA would be reimbursed for the funds that they invested in these properties. So that's kind of where that dollar figure came up. The finance department put that number together. This is how much they paid for the lots. They also, the CRA invested to put in the infrastructure, connections to sewer, water, and electric. So those are in there. So again, with the short timelines, they're developable now.
But for a Horn property, wouldn't we be getting the $239,000?
You didn't pay that for it.
No, because that's not what the city or the CRA paid for it. I want to say, well, it's right here, I'm sorry, page 2, $49,000. So that is what the financial investment originally for that one lot was. The rest were, averaged out to just over 61,000.
But did I misunderstand you then? Didn't you just say that the CRA owns the Horn property in site?
Correct, they bought it in 1994, and again, the appraisal is a 2020 appraisal, but that's not the value, that's the value of the land now for 2020, that's not what the CRA paid for it.
If I could perhaps offer some clarification, the purpose of the MOU is to distribute the proceeds of the land sale. We've had this question, what do we do with these parcels we've been holding for 20 years? They've really appreciated, and do we want all the money to go back into the Southland CRA, which by state statute it should, unless you develop an MOU between the taxing authority and the CRA to define how the proceeds are dispersed. So by statute, we have to return to the CRA, it's an investment in those properties, what it took to purchase them, maintain them, and improve them in any way. But beyond that, we can enter into this memorandum of understanding that says, okay, beyond the initial investment, the proceeds may be contributed to the city's general fund. Does that help?
For the Horn property,
For the Horn property
which is CRA owned piece of property.
Yes.
All of our conversations, I thought here have been that we were trying to sell that piece of property so we could get the benefits of the sale of that property.
But you gotta remember, the key was we weren't trying to put any more money into the CRA Southland coffers because we were donating half of that back to the city of Jacksonville. So whatever we can donate into Jack's Beach is where we wanna be. And that's what this memorandum of understanding does for us.
That's how I understand it as well.
It's okay. That's different than the way I took what I took away from our conversations, but thank you.
That's why we kind of held this up for a year or so, because until we figured out what we do with this Southland budget, there was no need to put more money into that.
And we didn't want to give it back to the city of Jacksonville, because we're giving half of it away.
Well, I would agree with that.
Okay, we are still on old business A, the property. Any other questions? Concerns? Comments?
If the board's comfortable moving forward with a motion to approve it, then we can do that, or any changes, additions, things like that, just let us know. Because our goal is to get this in front of council next.
Francis?
I'll make a motion to approve it as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Gary? No? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Gary Paytel?
Yes.
Chairman Mark Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Frances Pawlowski? Yes. Mr. David McGraw?
Yes.
All right, you're asking you to approve the motion as stated. Okay, on to item B, Art Committee.
Yes, that one will be me again. This was just put on here to kind of give you guys a quick update on where we stand. We've got some really, really good applicants in. We're actually really excited about this, and we've been working with Jim and Taylor as well. So we're all gonna sit down and start kind of going through our applicants. We've even come up with just kind of some rubric grading criteria, so that way it becomes more objective, like on how we're scoring the potential candidates. We will then, internally, we're gonna set up interviews to kind of sift through the candidates, and then at your April 24th meeting, or 24th, 25th, I'll tell my head keeper what Monday is. At your April meeting, we will then bring, the preferred candidates and some alternates to the board, for consideration.
Okay. Questions of Taylor on the Art Committee? Francis?
So my question is a little bit more broad, but I'm assuming you guys will be responding to city council about the hard work you guys have been putting into the CRA and letting them know that you're not twiddling your thumbs, and that this will be part of that. Hey, not only do they have this art committee, but they also have, I can give a long list of things, but
Yes, we've been working on our quarterly report. for
including
April.
the incentive plans and the brochures.
Oh, yes.
I just want to make sure that's brought up.
It's
Is
all
that going to be
there.
the next meeting for them?
I can answer that. So we are taking the CRA quarterly report to council in April. So I don't have the exact date in front of me, but we'll be updating them on all this stuff. And Again, reminding them to please, watch the meetings, go online, read the staff report, read the agenda items, because it is a tremendous amount of information to try to share with them only once a quarter. So we try to get that to them in advance and then give them kind of a snapshot of what we all have been doing over the last 3 months.
And I will notify you guys of that exact date.
I was just making sure that because they need to know all the different things because you guys really have turned around a lot. And I think it'll let that reflection be on you. So just make sure it's being included.
Very good. Anybody else, Gary?
This is another subject that's kind of old business. I would like to ask that we have a conversation in one of our next meetings, whether it's the workshop or another CRA meeting, to really sit down and discuss what we're doing with the downtown area as it relates to seating, like racks, signage, and how that's going to dovetail with work that needs to be done related to the paving in the downtown area. Because with all the construction, as you've heard me say before, the paving down there is getting torn up badly. And we just need to have a conversation about how to proceed, what's the right sequence of activities. Because if we put things in and we have to take them back out again, that's not going to serve anybody well. And I think it would be prudent for this board to have a conversation about that and agree upon how best to proceed. And I think that will really cut us loose to get these things moving along. Thank you.
And Gary, to your point, you just jogged our memory when you mentioned downtown. Exciting news, our bid documents are going out Wednesday. We've got those wrapped up, they're in procurement right now, and the bike racks, hardscaping plans, and signage are gonna go out to bid this Wednesday. So we will finally get the ball rolling on those.
Along with that, maybe, we were talking about paving also, that we had some conversation about the possibility of what to do with potentially 2nd Avenue North and 3rd Avenue North end zone areas. I think one of the other board members here made a wonderful suggestion about what if we created some unique spaces there. And that ought to be part of the whole conversation, I think, so that we really know what direction we want to go and how do we schedule this work with the other construction activities going on downtown, particularly the Marriott, Marriott Spring Hill Suites Hotel is having a major impact on the quality of what's down there right now. So, thank you.
Okay, we don't have to do anything specific for the art committee update.
Yes, sir.
Or any other business? Francis?
I did want to ask, and it kind of is old business, I don't think we've made an official request to do it, but it had to do with the fencing and the laydown lots. I had a citizen reach out to me and ask, even if those laydown lots have to have permits if they're on private property. I thought that there was, but told them that they probably should reach out to you guys or the planning committee. Am I wrong in that there is a permit that's pulled for laydown lots?
I will have to check with the building official. There might be some fencing requirements based on like safety and security of the property, but to what extent, I don't have those details.
So
I can work with the building official on that.
they were asking specifically about the lot that's over there behind the lunches and the art gallery. They were asking specifically about that. The private owner had to get a permit for them to lay down, and what happens to the area that's being affected and how this area might or might not be getting control of that.
Yeah. Follow up with George on that and get you an answer.
Okay, on to the item of discussion.
All right. This one kind of goes back to our January board meeting where we talked about this market analysis for the lot adjacent to Lakeland Plaza. Fortunately, in this last budget cycle, we worked with Ashley, we realized there was a large sum put in for professional services or contracts. So technically, this is actually budgeted for. So that's good. We don't have to do any budget modifications. final scope that we got from GAI. We took your comments as well as Jim Taylor's comments, Heather's, back to them. This is the final draft. You'll see there's costs in there as well. And so we just wanted to get this before you guys and before staff begins giving them the green light to, okay, dive into this, let's go. We wanted to just put this before you guys and make sure you were comfortable with this.
Francis?
So I am comfortable with it, because it's gonna start moving things along, and I know that even though we don't own that law, we need to do some recommendations to council, so I'm 100% on board for doing this, especially since it's in the budget. I just do wanna take the opportunity, though, to address our courtesy to the floors today, comments. I do believe we've addressed the city as a whole. I do think that we cannot address that section of the beach until we find out about the 100 spaces, and if city council does or does not want to pursue the city of Jacksonville for it. So just putting that on the record, that it has been discussed, and I'd like to know if by possibility, if you guys know when you might be addressing that question to council, because that way, if they do come back to us or anyone else does reach out to us individually about why we're not addressing those 3 lots over there, we could say we are on hold for city council and they're discussing it at this time. So my question is do you know when you might, I know we just did this last week, but when you might throw it at them?
So I will try to answer that. Really, the process for briefings is either the city manager tells us there's an item going on, or we kind of talk to him about it and see if that's something he wants to put on for our council agenda. So it's just a discussion we need to have with Mr. Stefopoulos on if and when this would go to council for discussion. Those meetings are pretty packed out, like months in advance, because we have so much going on, so it might not be immediately. We can try to wrap it in with maybe at the next quarterly report when we get to that point in time. I don't know if it'll be in the next couple of months, because again, those agendas are pretty jam-packed.
So with that being the case, maybe it's just a bug in the ear then? So when you guys are having the discussion with city council about these are things going on, I would just like to request that a bug's put in their ear saying they are on hold until they have more direction, and this will be a future discussion amongst you all. And that way it's out there in the open that we do know that we have those 3 lots, but there's no point in discussing them until we know what city council wants to do about those 100 spaces. So if there could be a little bug, that'd be great.
Gary?
Thank you again. I'd just like to maybe reiterate what Francis said in the comments made by Mr. Marsh. I want him to understand that we feel that moving along on the Latham lot is the most prudent thing to do because it's not encumbered in any way. Unfortunately, the property at the pier is encumbered based on the comments that were just made. There's 100 parking spaces that have to be provided for in accordance with the interlocal agreement with the city of Jacksonville. Until we can resolve that situation or change it, there is really nothing we can do with that piece of property. And our real focus needs to be on the Latham lot. It's an opportunity that will do a number of things for the city, in my opinion, in the way of improving an area, a significant area of the city, engaging the park, providing potential additional parking in that area, providing some residential potentially. The opportunities are tremendous, and it's not that we're ignoring the other areas, it's that we're trying to take the ones that that make the most sense right now for us to move forward on. The only thing I would ask staff to take a look at, when you look at the terms and conditions of the consultant's agreement, I would advise that it says enforced according to the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I would ask that it be the great state of Florida and not the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But that's on page 3 of 3 of under item 16A. So if you would address that with the consultant, I would appreciate it.
It's on their standard terms and conditions.
Oh, okay.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Catch. Yeah, good catch.
Okay, any other item for discussion?
Not from us, is this part of it?
All right, is this second email you sent us part of this discussion or a second part? Because it does directly address that general area. Latham, Plaza comments from our last workshop.
Yes.
Are we addressing that on this meeting or no?
I'm sorry,
So those we're trying to catch up with what you were pointing at. No, that's okay. Taylor went after our workshop and tried to consolidate all the comments so that we could send them to Dick's Height, and she sent that to you guys to make sure we didn't miss anything. I think Gary sent us one comment that we left out, and Dave, so that was what that was all about.
I just want to make sure it wasn't part of the same thing.
No, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay, so, if there's nothing else, believe it or not, it's 4 o'clock and we're there.
If I could, Mr. Chair, just give you guys a kind of a heads up on some upcoming meetings, if that's okay, real quickly. So tonight's council briefing at 5:30, they're going to be talking about, I think there's only 3 agenda items. One is the branding that was done by Dick's Height and Partners, and where the city wants to go with that, so the lifeguard chair logo and that whole big 124-page book. They're also going to be talking about pier operations, not the pier itself, but the concession building, that's right there at the beginning of the pier. And I was trying to look at my calendar. I think April 11th council briefing will be the CRA quarterly report. Also, we're going to work on a workshop for that date to talk about the items that Taylor already mentioned, and then our regular meeting will be on the 25th of April. Did I miss anything? I think that's everything I had.
So
I think that was it.
you said council briefing was today?
At 5:30. So if you guys want to tune in, it'll be on
Branding.
YouTube.
Well, I guess my suggestion would be, if you're gonna be talking about the pier, you talk about the, running of the pier. You also talk about those parking spaces to see if there's any appetite at all to address that.
Well, I made some notes, since that is not my agenda item. That's the deputy city manager talking about actually operations of the concession stand. But I made a note to put that in and talk to the city manager about doing it during the quarterly update for April. If it's something that and it might just be like you said, Francis, putting a bug in their ear about it. Just say, think about for the future discussion in more detail. Because we try to give adequate time at each one of those briefings for each individual topic. So I'll see if putting it on that briefing in April is the best opportunity to at least get it into their heads and spark the conversation into thinking about it.